In understanding how to modify moves and either progress or regress individual exercises or routines, it's important we understand how to layer elements of variation over base moves. A base move may be defined as anything that is a foundational movement pattern, or an exercise in its most easily recognised form. What we then do is apply any one or multiple elements of variation to create new versions of the same move. If we were to take a simple squat as an example, let's take a look at each of the elements from our Dr. T. Lump anagram and discover how each affects the squat. D stands for direction. Can you see how when we change the direction of an exercise, it usually refers to the way our body is facing in relation to the space that we're in? The direction usually refers to the right, left, front and back, with diagonal variations also added. It may also be in reference to the landmarks within the room, for example, clocks on the wall, windows in the room, or a stage in the studio. It provides reference points for the body to know which way it's facing. When you add direction changes, it makes a move more complex. Be aware that the simplest form of progressing and regressing a move when providing modifications is to remove the direction changes. R stands for rhythm. Here, the same 16 counts are filled with two different rhythm variations. Our regular single-time squat is slowed down to a half pace and then sped up with a quick bouncing rhythm. Our counts haven't changed for either, with both being 16 counts in total, but each set has a very different flavour provided by the rhythm changes layered from the top. T stands for travel. As opposed to direction, where we are provided with a cue such as left or right or a room landmark, here in travel, we describe the motion that takes us away from our starting point or base. We leave our spot and take the move away from the base, typically returning at some point. For example, the squat can travel forward and backwards or laterally to each side without changing direction as the body is still facing the front throughout. We could perform the squat with an L shape. This would be an example of travelling move and changing the direction of the move. This sees the body facing both the front and the side direction, whilst also moving off the spot before returning to the start position, a travel variation. Typically, when you add travel into the mix, you're making a movement more complicated, so removing travel will make a move or movement combination easier. L stands for lever. Lever can most easily be described as adding arms to any lower body movement, and vice versa, or taking the arms or legs further away, or bringing them closer to the base of support. A longer lever will typically be more intense than a shorter lever, as it requires more energy to hold and maintain stability in the actions performed further away from the body. Levers can make a massive amount of difference to the intensity of moves and a quick and easy way to modify moves for those who need them. U stands for unilateral. Anytime you do anything on one side of the body at a time, it's referred to as unilateral. This may apply to upper and lower body activities, and in some instances, both together. Whether the right and left sides aren't doing the same thing or evenly matched, it's being performed unilaterally. M stands for mode. The easiest way to think about the mode of a move is to think about the impact or force you have on the ground. Taking our squat once more, if we do a low impact variation as we have been doing, and then instruct participants to add intensity by jumping the movements, that's a classic example of mode change. When an instructor regresses a movement by saying, if you want to take the jumping out and just do the low impact version, that would be an example of changing, or in that case, regressing the movement via a mode change. P stands for plane. We know there are 3 planes of motion, and most base moves can be performed in at least 2 of the 3 planes of motion, as the transverse plane is difficult for some moves. In our squat, by taking it side to side, we are working in the frontal plane. If we were to then keep our body facing the front and taking stepping pattern to the front and back, this effectively creates a lunging pattern, which is performed in the sagittal plane. We can then keep the squat pattern moving through a 180-degree turn and back, creating a rotational movement in the transverse plane. You can begin to understand that by applying any one of these elements of variation, you can create multiple different flavours for the same exercises provided. The aim moving forward is to start to provide endless possibilities to your programming by combining these elements of variation, always keeping your class content, fresh and interesting. Do keep in mind, however, the KISS principle states that we should always keep it fairly simple to allow for participant success and that too many variations could lead to confusion. Give them a go, see what you can create, and always remember to pay Dr. T. Lump a visit every now and then for a health checkup of your class programming.